Hello and welcome to the Scottish Borders. My name is Goulden. I've spoken on this platform many times. I'm a former police officer from Scotland, and I wanted to take this opportunity to respond to my good friend James Humphreys, who produced a really eloquent conversation this weekend about police and stop and search. And it's one of these topics that is dividing so much opinion just now in the UK. On one side, we've got people saying, yes, we need stop and search. You know what? It's the only way we're going to solve the issues that we see in society. On the other side, we've got people who think it's being used too much. It's not a tool that produces the success that many think it does. I think it's important that we try and find some middle ground, because there's just too much of this one side. You've got to pick a side, and I don't like picking sides, especially when it comes to tackling violence. James made some really valid points in that conversation about the need for stop and search. And can I just start by saying that, you know what, stop and search as part of our violence prevention strategy is needed. I remember in my time in the violence reduction unit in Scotland, we talked about the need for swift, visible justice. Society demands that of us, to keep people safe, to prevent crime, to detect crime. We need police officers with powers, with the tools to go out and do their job. But there's a balance to be struck. As a police officer, when I was a police officer in Edinburgh, I used my powers of search. I was sent to Tullyallen, the police college. I was given, I often say to people, I was given a uniform, I was given handcuffs, I was given a baton, I was given a radio, I was given powers of search, powers of detention, powers of arrest. I often ask people, what was I given? And people will say to me, you were given power. And yeah, I was, but I was also given a set of tools. And within these tools, I was given the power to detain people, to arrest people, to deprive them of their liberty whilst I searched them for drugs, for weapons or whatever. But I had to justify that. And I really, from the outset, really started to make sure that I understood my powers. When I was searching a person and I was depriving them of their liberty for even that short period of time for that search, I need to make sure that my use of my powers was proportionate, it was justified, and it was reasonable in the circumstances. I needed also to be aware that if I recovered any particular item, I need to be able to justify that in a court. If I had a recovery of drugs or a weapon or whatever that was, I had to justify that to the sheriff, to the judge in the court, and potentially justify that search if there was a complaint made against me about me using my powers of search in society. So, I think it's important that stop and search has a place in the prevention of, and I'm going to talk about in this particular talk about the prevention of violence. But if it's your only tool, we have an issue. I think it was Abraham Maslow said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. If the only tool you have is the hammer, you tend to see every problem as the nail. And that is correct. And as I said, I am a believer in stop and search, but it is part of a response. And I think we need to be giving police officers more tools. We not only, I don't think, James talked a lot about how we need to inform society and different communities about why police have stop and search. And I would suggest that the vast majority of people in this country actually support the police in their use of their stop and search powers. But I think we need to balance that. And we need to balance that by giving police officers more awareness of the issues that our communities are facing. I want to tell you a story. A few years ago, I was driving my car in Leith in Edinburgh, train spotting. If you've seen the film Train Spotting, Leith was a big part of the Train Spotting film. And I was driving up Easter Road, and I saw a man at a set of traffic lights waiting to cross, and I'd stopped at the traffic lights, and I instantly recognised this man, John was his name. And I went right back to 1987 when I was a young 19-year-old police officer and John was a 15-year-old boy. And I have to say that as a young, enthusiastic, committed police officer at the time, John was the criminal. John was the person who was breaking into cars, breaking into houses, causing havoc in the community of Leith. And it was my job to stop him. And I'd be stopping and searching and using my powers with John on a regular basis. But I knew John's dad had been a victim of murder. He was dead, no longer in John's life. I knew that John's mum was an alcoholic who had been an alcoholic most of her adult life. And when she was carrying John, I was aware that she was a victim of domestic abuse. And a victim of domestic abuse in John's early years. I was aware that John's granny, his grandmother, was struggling. She was looking after young John, and she was struggling. She had her own issues, her own health issues. And despite knowing all these things, I didn't make the connection between all of this and what was going on in John's life. Now, please don't think that he's going soft around these issues. Not at all. You know, I'm often described as the soft cop. In my time in the violence reduction unit, I was often described as going a bit wrong, going a bit soft around these issues, and not at all. You know, people who commit violence, people who commit any crime, need to be held accountable for what they do. But we need to understand what's going on, and when you start to understand the issues at play, we have a chance to prevent things for the long term. I sometimes think we're focused too much on the short-term prevention. Violence prevention is the long game. It requires different thinking. It requires sometimes, as police officers, take your police hat off and be that dad, be that mother, be that brother, be that sister, be that human being, and bring that to your work. We need to equip our police officers more with skills and knowledge, what's happening in our communities, especially around the impact of trauma. It annoys me when we have pockets of that for a short term around talking about trauma, but then that goes away. And we're back to stop and search. We need to be doing both, people. We need to be doing both and more around these issues, because if we don't deal with the trauma and have a better understanding of trauma in our society, our police officers are going to be at more risk. Our communities are going to be at more risk. So one more tool that we need to be adding to the toolkit, the toolbox that our police officers have, along with their powers of search, along with their powers of arrest, and the other powers they have, force, etc. We need to give them the awareness of childhood trauma and the impact that has. And it doesn't mean that we're making our officers into social workers or mental health officers. You know what? These are the issues that are taking place in our society. We need, as a service, to better understand the issues that are at play in our communities and our society as a whole. You know, there was a bit of work done in New York City many years ago where the NYPD worked to rule. So they did no proactive policing, they did no stop and searching, they only did what was necessary at the time. Crime fell. They did no proactive policing, crime fell. Criminal justice is the sword that just creates so many more problems out there in society. When we are proactive, and you know what, we need to be proactive, but we need to balance. But often when police are in communities doing what society thinks they should be doing, we are upsetting tenancies, we are splitting families up, we are people losing their jobs. These are the issues that we need to be getting better aware of, and how they are impacting on lots of issues in society. We're very short term. Our politicians speak about stop and search to help them get elected. We have so many retired police officers who are getting put onto BBC News, getting put onto Sky News, and talking about the good old days, talking about days 5, 10, 15 years ago. You know what? Things have changed. We know so much more now around the issues that I've talked about in this. My knowledge really transformed back in 2009, 2010, when I joined the Violence Reduction Unit. I was forced to take my police hat off and start to look at things totally differently. You know, think about that quote in the film Dead Poets Society. We must stand on our desk to remind ourselves that we must look at things in different ways. And I ask you all who's watching this to start thinking about issues totally differently. We still need to do the job. Police officers still need to do the job. They still need to exercise their powers of search, stop and search. They still need to be able to do that. We, the society, we deserve swift, visible justice. But we also need to understand and balance the stop and search with other things. If police are really invested in prevention, they need to get more involved with the violence reduction approaches that are taking place across England and Wales. And be careful that you don't come into conflict with what many of the VRUs are doing in England and Wales. Great prevention work is starting to take place across different parts of the country. there's a chance that enforcement could be in conflict with this. That's a fear that I have. Great prevention work, people getting hope in society and in the communities, and then we have the enforcement side which takes away that hope. Taught many things in my policing career, and I want to just end you with this. John, going back to John in Easter Road, he was a young man who I used to hound as a police officer. I was thinking I was doing the right thing. And I said to you, I was aware of the issues that he was facing, but I didn't connect them. I didn't connect the dots between his behaviour. When I looked at John, I felt quite ashamed, actually. I felt quite ashamed. He looked, despite being 5 or 6 years younger than me, he looked 10 years older than me. And I've been part of his life. And yeah, you know what? He committed crimes and he deserved to be punished for that. But I just think back now and think, could I have engaged better with John in that time? It's relationships, people. It's relationships. And I think, yeah, stop and search is important, but how about stop and engage being the default? Stop and engage being the default for us. How do we stop and engage before things happening? During, how do we become more trauma aware when we are stopping and searching an individual? Are we explaining what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing? Are we being fair in what we're doing? And if we have to arrest a person, take them back to the police station, using that trauma lens, when we shut that cell door or we charge a person, are we going to start to ask questions about what's going on in that individual's life? Because I think this trauma lens is so important, but we can't just have the knowledge without putting it into practice. So James's talk, fantastic. An awareness, society needs an awareness of what the police are doing out there around stop and search, but I think we need to balance that with more awareness within the organisation, the police organisation, to be able to respond effectively through their trauma lens to the communities that they serve. It's my dogs barking away. I'm sorry about that. I was wondering if they would participate in this conversation at some stage. So let's just keep doing this. Let's use the knowledge that we've got in society and let's build the relationships.